Hi guys, how's it going? This is Dora, you're supposed to respond. This is like Dora. Good, are we having fun? Good, me too. Boots? Boots was the monkey, right? For today, oh my gosh, I am a hot mess today. Get it together, Sophie. You have lipstick on your teeth. Ross just said love you. Love you, Ross. Okay, so for today, I'm making the video that I constantly get asked about. How I told my parents / my family that I was in a relationship, long distance, and that we met online. This video may or may not help because I had a very specific situation that most people don't really have. My sister has been in a long distance relationship with a man from England for almost 4 years. They were together for, I think, about a year when Ross asked me out. So my family had experienced my sister leaving to go to England. They'd experienced the fact that she was dating a guy she met online, and it was sort of a thing for us. It wasn't really an issue. So I knew that in the back of my mind this was something that was already happening, and I sort of went with that as a way to make things better for my situation. But even though that was the case, I still had the issue of, well, guys, I'm doing this as well. Now you have 2 daughters who have boyfriends in England, and we're both doing long distance. So it was easier in the sense that the idea of it wouldn't be as bad to them, but the fact that it was happening again for them might be bad. So I was still very, very worried. So for me, this is how it happened. Ross asked me out. We were very excited, and I didn't tell anybody for about a day, but then I did. It was around the second day that we had been a couple, and my sister was getting ready in the mirror, and I sort of just was like, I have to tell her. I have to tell her because of all people, she'll understand. She's going through it. She won't care. She's met Ross. Like, Ross had met her by now, and they had been talking, and this was like, okay, they knew each other. And again, she had been in this type of relationship. This lipstick leaves me so lip stainy. Okay, so she was getting ready, and I was like, I didn't even say anything but this one line. I said, so guess what? I'm doing what you're doing. She didn't need any explanation. She was just like, I knew it. She literally was like, I knew it. I called it. I didn't have to tell her what I meant. She knew exactly that I meant about Ross, and she was okay with it, obviously, because she's going through it. And she was just like, when did it happen? I was like, yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago. And she was like, okay. Have you told Mom? And I was like, no. And she was totally okay with it. And she even said to me, like, she was cooking one time, and she said to me, what if he's your soulmate? And I was like, I think she said that because I hadn't dated anybody else. I wasn't really like talking like that with people. And then here comes this guy that I finally say yes to, and he's in England, and she just thought of it like, maybe this is because it's meant to be. I don't know. Maybe. I was like, I just have to tell my mom at least, because I live with my mom. I'm close to my dad, but I don't live with him. So it really has to work. It really had to be okay with my mom. And I think the important thing with this sort of situation, if you're old enough, more specifically, is to not ask them. To not be like, hey, what do you think if I do this? The approach I took, and what I think is probably the smartest, is to just tell them this is what's happening. Because as soon as you ask them, as soon as it's a question for them, they feel like they have more authority and control over if you can have it or not. So I just said to my mom, she was on the bathroom toilet when I said this. I said, so I'm doing what Lexi's doing with Ross. And she went, what? Because she likes to be sarcastic. And I said, well, we're trying out a long distance relationship. And she was like, okay, if that's what you want to do. And she meant that in the sense that I don't care, do what you want, but if that's the kind of, like, if you want to go through all that trouble, you know, the tickets, the distance, whatever, the flights, the visits, then that's up to you. So she wasn't like opposed to it. She was just like, hey, that's your prerogative. And I was like, okay. We just, that's done instead. At least she knows. She already knew I liked him because she said, hey, do you like Ross? You guys Skype a lot. And I was like, yeah. She's like, does he like me? And I was like, yeah. He digs me, Mom. No, I didn't say that, but I said, yeah, he does. But this was before I told her we were going out, because I don't think we were going out then. But, so I told her, and she was like, okay. And then she was like, both my daughters, but she didn't care. Like, it wasn't a problem for her. So I just sort of said, I'm doing what Lexi's doing. And again, I didn't ask her. I didn't say, is this okay? I just said, this is what I'm doing. I'm 18. I didn't say this, but I was 18, and as much as I don't think just because you're 18 it means you know everything or you can make every decision or you're super adult, because just because you turn 18 in one day doesn't mean everything's changed. But even so, I was like, I'm in college. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. He's a great guy. You've met him. Whatever. So the issue is with my father, though. My father isn't a big fan of my sister's boyfriend, and this isn't due to distance or that he's in England. This is more due to his financial situation. But even so, because of that, even though that's not the same with Ross, it scared me to tell him, because I knew he wasn't really happy with her relationship. So I didn't want to tell him, and I was really scared to tell him because I didn't know what he would do. He loves me, he's always supportive, but I just didn't know how he would react to know that his daughter's doing this as well, his second daughter. What I did, and what I recommend to do in situations where you just don't think telling them would work, if you haven't met them yet, this is what I did. I told my father, and this was after Ross and I booked our ticket for him to visit me for the first time. I told my father, I said, so I have this friend coming to see me. He's from England. He was like, okay, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, he's a director. I sort of started saying things that I knew my dad would like. He's a director. He loves New York City. He loves film. Because my dad likes to direct and he loves films as well. So I sort of started telling them things that he might like about him. But I said he's my friend coming to see me as a friend and to visit the city. There was no relationship there. It was completely platonic in my dad's eyes. And I said he's just coming to see me as a friend. Then when Ross came, I had my dad hang out with him. I had us go to the movies, I had us go to dinner, I had us do things so that they could get to know each other, just as individuals. And we did this a few times. We got together, we hung out, my dad loved him, but he was still just my friend to my father. I wanted to tell my dad before I met Ross, but my mom was like, you might as well just tell him once Ross is in the city and meets you, because he'll probably not understand. So I wanted to tell him, but she said it would just be a hassle, and it would make more sense to tell him after you've met. So after my father and Ross hung out a few times, and I knew he really liked him, one day I sort of just texted my dad and said, well, actually, I told my mom to tell my father in an email. I think she wrote like, so it's good about Ross and Sophie, right? And sort of just told him. And then my father texted me, was like, Ross asked you out. Basically what I'm saying is I pretended that Ross asked me out on this visit while he was with me, and that we had just been friends. When he came to see me, we hung out, he realized his feelings for me, and he asked me out while he was here. So my dad texted me and was like, Ross asked you out, and I was like, yeah. And then he calls me, and I was with Ross in bed. We were like on his computer, and my dad calls me and he's like, so he asked you out? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what did he say? And I was like, well, I said what he actually did say to me, what Ross did say to me, but I said it happened in person, obviously. And I said, he just told me that he really liked me, and that being with me in person like solidified his feelings, and that he wanted to try long distance. And my dad was completely fine with it. He was so happy for me. He was like, Ross is a great guy. He was like, I know this is long distance, but he's a great guy, and I think it will work for you. And he was just so touched by what Ross said about, me, supposedly. And he was really, really happy for me. So I was like, okay, this was the best approach I could have done. They had met in person. The online-ness factor of it kind of dissolved because everything was happening for my dad in person. Everything was Ross, it was face value, everything was right there for him. So he didn't really see it as something online because we were together. And that's sort of how I told him. I waited till they met, and I said that Ross asked me out while we were together because his feelings for me solidified when we were in person. Even though that obviously wasn't the truth, I just felt like it was easier to tell my dad that way. I recommend that if you really feel like you can't tell your parents. However, a large part of me for a year and a half was just like, or even 2 years, was just like, I feel so guilty that he thinks we just started dating when really we had been dating for 8 months already and had known each other a year. Like, my dad thinks we just got together and it's been almost 8 months of, no, sorry, almost 9 months of a relationship, 12 months knowing each other. So you will find probably that there's this huge guilt, and there's also a lot I had to hide sort of because he thought we had just gone out, just started going out in person. So it was a great way to break the ice and let him know, but I felt really bad just hiding that because I felt like I had to hide a lot of our relationship. We used to have bracelets, but we lost them. We used to have bracelets that said "Pramissimo" because it's one of our words, and it whatever, it means something to us. And I used to have to lie about what it meant and why I had it, and it sucked. So I recommend it, but then I recommend telling the truth eventually, which I've done. I think about 8 months ago, I was at the table, and now this is years past of us being a couple, and my family is obsessed with Ross and they love him, so I felt like it was completely fine to say. We were at dinner and I sort of just said, well, my dad was like, do you think Ross is gonna want to marry you? And I was like, think so. And he was like, yeah, you guys know each other well. I was like, yeah, and actually we've actually been dating longer than you think. We dated before we met, but my mom sort of just wanted me to tell you in person because she thought it would be easier. And his response was, that's so silly, I wouldn't care. He was like, you could have just told me, it wouldn't matter as long as he's a good guy. And I was like, of course it wouldn't matter. I mean, not every parent is like that, but I should have known that he would have been okay with it if he met Ross, which everyone else did over Skype. I knew he would have loved him. He loves the directing, he loves how he treats me. So I eventually told him the truth, and now he knows actually how long we've been dating, and he knows the real story and everything. And I think it was probably the best for me to tell him like I did, but at least I told him the truth now. And I recommend eventually telling the truth because you don't want to have to hide certain things. You don't want to have your stories get mixed up because you really dated here, but they think you dated then, and it's just a hassle and it's not worth it. So that's what I recommend, and that's what I did. Another way you can do it is, if you don't want to wait till you actually meet, because if you think that might be a while, is to go on video chat with your boyfriend or girlfriend, hang out with them in front of your parents. We used to have the computer in the living room, and I used to Skype in front of my mom. And so she could see us Skyping, and this was after, but she saw us Skyping, and I think that's the best, is to just let them see how happy you are, let them see how fun you guys have with each other, how much fun you guys have with each other, let them see your conversation, how natural it is, let them meet, that's the most important. Tell your mom to come say hi to him, tell your dad to come say hi to him, and do it, if it's easier, say he's just a friend, and you say he's just a friend. And you say he is just a friend, oh baby, you. That's why I don't sing. Say he's just a friend, or she's just a friend, but have them meet so that they know each other. Because then after a while you can be like, oh hey, by the way, Eric said that he wanted to try long distance with me because he really liked me. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, Eric's super nice, we met, like they'll have met Eric, they'll have seen Eric talk to you. And it's just easier like that when they know who you're talking with. Because a lot of it is ignorance. They think you met someone online, you don't know who they are, they can be this older person, and as long as they know who you're talking to, that they see you're happy, that's all that matters. They might go, yeah, well, you shouldn't do long distance, but that's not their problem. It's you who has to do with the long distance. So ultimately, as long as they're okay with the person, that's all that matters. That really is all that matters. So I think that's another good approach, is just let them see you guys on video chat, let them say hi, let them get to know you, let them get to know them, and just do it that way. Because it's really hard, but that's, lost my train of thought. As always, I should take notes. I don't take notes, I just kind of ad-lib it. I should take notes. And also, if they're gonna be like, oh well, long distance is hard and you're not gonna do it, well, come at them if it's realistic for your age, come at them like, well, you don't have to worry about it. I have a job. I'm going to save the money. I'm going to afford the trips. You don't have to worry about anything other than my safety and my happiness because you got it. Show them that you're responsible. Show them that you'll know what to do. You'll know how to afford the flights or the train tickets, that you know what you're doing and you're not just getting in this because you're in love and being naive. Let them see that you can handle this and that you're mature enough. Because if you can show them that, that really, really helps. Okay, so that's my advice. Be as open as you can because it will really help you in the end, and try to show them that you know what you're talking about, that you know who you're talking to, that you've met, and that everything is legitimate, because that's also very important. And just tell them in some way. You gotta do what you gotta do, because ultimately, most parents aren't gonna shun you. They're not gonna tell you to stop talking to the person. They just wanna make sure you're doing the right thing. What is this? I just found this in my foot. It's a hairpin. Okay? So, good luck. That was my story. And arrivederci. Au revoir. Yes, us? Bye. 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 I swear to God, lipstick needs to calm down.